In the heart of the sapphire spire, a crystalline palace that pierced the violet skies of the planet Virelis, reigned twin princesses whose beauty was matched only by their chaos. Princess Lyriel and Princess Nithra, daughters of High Sovereign Vorin the Unshaken, were legends whispered across the 3 galaxies. Purple-skinned, with hair like spun moonlight and eyes that shimmered like twin nebulas, they moved through the palace corridors like twin comets, leaving trails of shattered vases, flustered dignitaries, and singed royal tapestries in their wake. At 14 cycles, barely past the age of cosmic adolescence, they wielded psychic harmonics, minor gravity manipulation, and a talent for mimicry that could imitate any voice from the royal council, usually at the most inconvenient moments. No tutor lasted more than 2 solar rotations. No royal guard dared enter their wing without full armor, and even then only after triple-checking for floating chandeliers rigged to drop at a sneeze. Their laughter was music, but their mischief was war. The sovereign, though loving, had long since resigned himself to their wildness as a force of nature, like solar flares or sentient storms. Let them burn bright. He'd sigh to his advisors, rubbing his temples while reviewing another report of the twins, turning the ambassador of Xylos into a life-sized topiary shaped like a disgruntled womprat. They'll mellow with age. But age, it seemed, only sharpened their creativity. One incident involved them reprogramming the palace's sentient fountains to spout riddles in dead dialects. Another turned the royal banquet into a zero-gravity juggling contest using the visiting monarch's ceremonial orbs. The final straw came when they used a stolen chronal lens to make time loop inside the throne room for 3 hours, forcing the entire High Council to debate tax reform while reliving the same awkward cough from Minister Glorvac over and over. That was when Vorin made a desperate decree. Anyone who could civilize his daughters for 1 full planetary cycle would be granted a seat on the Sapphire Council, full residency in the palace, and a starship of their choosing. The galaxy scoffed. Civilize the Virelian Tempests? Impossible. Enter Tauren. He arrived not in a warship or a diplomat's cruiser, but in a battered, second-hand cargo hauler named the Dust Mite, its hull patched with scrap metal and its AI system held together by chewing gum and sarcasm. Tauren wasn't a noble, a warrior, or a mystic. He was a human salvage engineer from the fringe colonies. A lean, sun-worn man with calm brown eyes, calloused hands, and a silence that wasn't empty but full, like a room waiting to be filled with the right words. He'd heard about the Sovereign's offer while fixing a plasma converter on a space station near the Andar Belt. Not for the starship or the title, but because his younger sister, lost years ago during the Outer Rim collapse, had once dreamed of visiting Virelis. If I can't bring her here, he muttered to himself, wiping grime off his forehead. Maybe I can leave something good behind. So he signed up. The palace staff stared at him like he'd walked in wearing a spacesuit made of bubble wrap. You? Sneered Commander Zorek, head of the Royal Guard, eyeing Tauren's patched flight suit. You think a human can leash lightning? Tauren just nodded once and said, I'll start tomorrow. He wasn't given quarters in the guest wing. They put him in a small storage alcove near the palace's old observatory, barely big enough for a cot and a crate of spare parts. But Tauren didn't complain. That night, he cleaned his tools, organized his few belongings, and laid out a simple plan. Don't command. Observe. Understand. The twins found him before breakfast. They phased through the wall of his alcove like spirits, appearing in twin puffs of lavender-scented mist. Lyriel floated upside down, twirling a gravity orb between her fingers, while Nithra crouched on the ceiling like a curious feline, her white hair cascading toward the floor. Both wore matching silver bodysuits dotted with glowing glyphs that shifted with their moods, currently a riotous swirl of crimson and gold. Oh! Nithra cooed, voice honey-sweet with mischief. The meat sack who thinks he can tame us. Lyriel dropped to the floor with a soft thud, eyes narrowing. He smells like rust and old stars. Not royal at all. Tauren didn't flinch. He was fixing a broken scanner, his fingers moving with steady precision. Good morning, he said without looking up. If you're here to turn my cot into a trampoline, could you wait until I finish this? It's for the Eastern Greenhouse Hydroponics. They're running low on glowmoss. The twins exchanged glances. This wasn't the usual reaction. Most adults screamed, bowed, or tried to lecture. This human just kept working. Why aren't you scared? Nithra demanded, leaping down and landing soundlessly before him. Tauren finally looked up. His gaze was calm, not condescending. I've handled plasma leaks in 0G with one hand tied behind my back. Compared to that, 2 curious girls aren't exactly terrifying. Girls. Lyriel bristled, her glyphs flaring violet. "We are princesses of the seventh flame." "And princesses," Torin replied mildly, "still knock before entering someone's room. It's polite." Silence. Polite. The word hung in the air like a foreign spice. No one had ever told them to be polite. They'd been told to be regal, obedient, majestic, but never polite. Sounded small. Human. They left without another word, but not before Nithra stole his wrench, only to return it 5 minutes later, polished to a shine and humming with a low-frequency tune. The next few days were a ballet of subtle rebellion and quiet persistence. The twins tried everything. They filled his alcove with floating jelly snakes that sang opera. They replaced his ration bars with sentient cookies that begged not to be eaten. They even projected a hologram of a black hole over his cot, complete with ominous sound effects. But Torin never raised his voice. He fed the jelly snakes to the palace's pet void eel. He adopted the cookies as temporary companions, naming them Crumble and Snap. And he used the black hole projection to explain actual astrophysics to a group of wide-eyed kitchen apprentices, who then bombarded the twins with questions about event horizons. Slowly, curiously, the twins began to trail him. They watched as he fixed the palace's malfunctioning skylifts, his hands moving with a grace that wasn't flashy but deeply competent. They saw him mediate a dispute between two garden drones over who got to prune the singing ferns, by teaching them to take turns using a rock-paper-scissors algorithm. They noticed how he always said "thank you" to the laundry bots and held doors for the elderly archivists, even though no one expected it. One afternoon, during a rare moment of stillness in the sun dome, a vast garden where twin suns cast honeyed light through prismatic glass, Torin sat cross-legged on a mossy bench, cleaning a bundle of crystal tuning forks used for stabilizing the palace's harmonic shields. Lyriel and Nithra hovered at the edge of the path, invisible but not silent. Their psychic hum gave them away. "You keep helping everyone," Nithra's voice drifted, still cloaked in invisibility. "Even the bots." Torin didn't look up. "Everything that works has value. Everything that's broken can be fixed, including people." "Are we broken?" Lyriel asked, her voice smaller now. Torin paused. Then he placed the tuning fork down gently. "No, but maybe you're unplayed. Like an instrument no one's bothered to learn." The invisibility shimmered away. The twins stood there, suddenly looking very young. Their glyphs flickered soft blue, uncertainty, curiosity. "What if we don't want to be polite?" Nithra challenged, though her tone lacked its usual bite. "Then don't," Torin said simply. "But ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? The pranks? Or something more?" That night, the palace experienced its quietest evening in years. The next morning, Torin found a hand-drawn map on his cot. It led to the Royal Vault of Lost Inventions, a forbidden section buried beneath the spire's foundations, sealed after an incident involving self-replicating teacups. The twins waited at the entrance, their expressions unreadable. "The harmonic loom is down there," Lyriel said. "It weaves starlight into fabric, but it's jammed. No one's been able to fix it in centuries." "Why show me?" Torin asked. "Because," Nithra said, crossing her arms, "if you can fix it without blowing up the palace, maybe we'll say please next time." Torin smiled faintly. "Deal." What followed was a 3-day engineering odyssey. The loom was a masterpiece of ancient Varelian tech, coils of living crystal, threads of condensed nebulae, and a core powered by a captured comet fragment. It had seized because the resonance frequency had drifted out of alignment, causing the threads to tangle into cosmic knots. Torin worked tirelessly, using tools he jury-rigged from spare parts, while the twins watched, first from a distance, then closer, then finally helping. Lyriel used her gravity touch to stabilize trembling filaments. Nithra sang low harmonics to soothe the agitated crystal arrays. They argued, laughed, and once, when a coil nearly discharged into Torin's chest, Lyriel yanked him back so hard they both tumbled into a pile of star silk. "You almost got atomized," she hissed, eyes wide with panic. "Thanks for noticing," Torin wheezed, lying on the floor. Nithra knelt beside them, her usual mischief replaced by something softer. "We don't want you to disappear." "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. On the third day, the loom hummed back to life. Threads of silver and gold wove through the air, forming a tapestry that shimmered with constellations not yet born. The palace sensors detected the resonance shift instantly. Alarms blared, not in warning, but in celebration. Bells chimed through the spire. For the first time in centuries, the loom sang. The sovereign arrived within minutes, flanked by his entire council. He stared at the glowing tapestry, then at his daughters, soot-smudged, exhausted, but radiant with pride, and then at Torin, who stood quietly at the edge, wiping grease from his hands. "You did this?" Vorin asked, voice thick. "We did," Nithra corrected, stepping forward. "He taught us how to listen to the machine," Lyriel added, "and we held the thread steady, like he showed us." The Sovereign looked from his daughters to the human. In their eyes, he saw something he hadn't seen in years. Focus, purpose, respect. From that day on, the twins changed, not overnight, but steadily. They still played pranks, but now they were kind ones. Turning the Minister of Tax's grumpy expression into a permanent smile for a day, or filling the barracks with pillows that whispered lullabies. They began attending council meetings, not to disrupt, but to ask thoughtful questions. They even started tutoring younger royals in harmonic engineering, using Torin's methods. Torin never moved out of his alcove, though the Sovereign insisted on better quarters. "I like it here," he said, "close to the observatory, good for stargazing." But the real test came during the Festival of Twin Moons, the holiest night in the Varelian calendar. The entire galaxy watched as the royal family performed the Celestial Weave, a ritual dance that aligned the palace's shields with the planet's magnetic poles. But this year something went wrong. A rogue comet fragment, drawn by the loom's reawakened frequency, veered off course and hurtled toward Varelles. Panic erupted. The royal fleet scrambled, but they wouldn't reach it in time. In the throne room, chaos reigned. The council shouted over each other. The Sovereign stood frozen. Then, from the balcony, a clear voice rang out. "Father, the loom can redirect it." All eyes turned to Lyriel and Nithra, standing side by side in ceremonial robes, their white hair glowing in the twin moonlight. "How?" the Sovereign demanded. "We recalibrate the harmonic output," Nithra explained quickly. "Use the comet's own resonance against it. Nudge it into a slingshot orbit around the outer rings. It's dangerous," a general warned. "One miscalculation and the feedback could shatter the spire." "We won't miscalculate," Lyriel said, her voice steady. "Torin taught us the math, and we've practiced." The Sovereign hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Do it." The twins raced to the loom chamber with Torin close behind. As they worked, Nithra modulating frequencies, Lyriel weaving energy streams into precise vectors, Torin monitored the feedback loops, feeding them data from his handheld scanner. Sweat beaded on their brows. The palace trembled as the comet's gravity tugged at Varelles. Cracks spiderwebbed across the crystal walls. "Hold the fifth harmonic," Torin shouted over the roar. "We're trying," Nithra yelled back, her voice strained. Then disaster. A surge overloaded the primary conduit. Sparks flew. The loom screeched. "We're losing it," Lyriel cried. Torin didn't hesitate. He leapt onto the control dais, jamming his scanner into the core interface. "Override Protocol Theta. Now!" The twins didn't question him. They obeyed. The loom flared blinding white. A wave of pure harmonic energy shot skyward, invisible to the eye but felt in every bone. Outside, the comet's trajectory bent, just enough. It skimmed the upper atmosphere, trailing fire, and whipped around Varelles like a stone from a sling, vanishing into deep space. Silence. Then, cheers erupted across the planet. In the loom chamber, the twins collapsed into each other, trembling. Torin sank to his knees, breathing hard. Slowly, they looked at him. Not with mischief, not with curiosity, but with something deeper. "You told us to knock," Lyriel said softly. "But you never told us how to say thank you." Nithra stepped forward, eyes shimmering. "So we'll show you." They took his hands, one each, and pressed their foreheads to his in the Varelian gesture of deepest respect. "We obey you," Nithra whispered. "Not because you command us, but because you believed we could be more." Torin smiled, weary but warm. "You always were." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy buzzed with tales of the Varelian tempests tamed by a human engineer. Diplomats arrived seeking his counsel. Scholars begged to study his methods. But Torin remained in his alcove, fixing things, teaching, listening. The twins, now inseparable from him, walked the palace halls with a new grace. Not subdued, but centered. They still laughed loudly, still danced on ceilings, still turned fountains into musical instruments, but now they asked first. They held doors. They said please. They said thank you. And when the Sovereign, in a private ceremony beneath the twin moons, offered Tauren the title of Royal Guardian and a permanent place in the Sapphire Council. The twins didn't protest. Instead, Lyriel spoke for them both. He's already family. Tauren looked at them, at the wild, brilliant, purple-skinned girls who had once been chaos incarnate, and saw not subjects to civilize, but souls to cherish. He accepted the title, not for the honor, but for the chance to keep walking beside them as they grew. Not into perfect princesses, but into kind, powerful, joyful beings who knew that strength and gentleness could coexist. And so, in the heart of the Sapphire Spire, beneath skies painted with alien stars, a human and two alien princesses forged a bond not of control, but of mutual respect. A quiet revolution that proved even the wildest hearts can learn to listen, when someone speaks not with authority, but with love. Weeks turned into months, and the quiet rhythm of life in the Sapphire Spire settled into something richer, deeper. Tauren's alcove remained his sanctuary, but now it was rarely empty. Lyriel and Nithra often joined him there after their duties, sprawled on cushions salvaged from the throne room, debating star charts or tinkering with broken drones. The palace staff, once wary, now greeted Tauren with genuine smiles. Even Commander Zorek, who had once sneered at his arrival, now nodded respectfully whenever they passed in the corridors. The twins' transformation wasn't perfection. They still snuck gravity orbs into Minister Glorvak's soup on occasion, but their mischief had a new compass: kindness. Yet beneath the calm, unrest stirred. Whispers reached the spire from the outer rim, rumors of a shadow faction called the Obsidian Veil, exiled Varelian nobles who believed the royal bloodline had grown weak, diluted by compassion. They preached that the twins' newfound gentleness was a corruption, a human taint that defiled their divine chaos. Worse, they claimed the harmonic loom's reactivation had awakened something ancient buried in Vareli's core, a primal consciousness known as the Echo. Tauren first heard of it from a trembling scout who arrived with cracked armor and hollow eyes. "It speaks through machines," the scout gasped before collapsing. "It calls the twins by name." The sovereign dismissed it as fearmongering, until the palace AI began glitching. Holographic statues recited nursery rhymes in dead languages. The skylifts floated backward, and one night, Lyriel woke screaming, clutching her head as if something inside her skull were whispering secrets she couldn't understand. "It said I belonged to it," she whispered to Tauren the next morning, her glyphs flickering unstable greens and blacks. "That I've always belonged." Nithra, usually the more impulsive twin, grew uncharacteristically still. "I heard it too," she admitted. "Last night. Sounded like us, but wrong." Tauren's engineer instincts flared. He ran diagnostics on the palace's neural core, traced energy fluctuations, and discovered an anomalous resonance pulsing from deep beneath the spire, synchronized with the twins' biosignatures. The echo wasn't just a myth. It was real, and it was calling them home. Before he could report his findings, disaster struck. During a routine maintenance check on the loom's secondary coils, Nithra suddenly froze. Her eyes went blank, her skin darkened to near black, and her voice, when she spoke, was layered, echoing inhuman. "The veil prepares the ritual," she intoned. "The bond must be severed. The human must be unmade." Tauren lunged, grabbing her shoulders. "Nithra, fight it!" She blinked, and collapsed into his arms, sobbing. "It's inside me," she choked out, like a second heartbeat. That evening, the twins confessed everything. In childhood, during a forbidden exploration of the spire's underlevels, they touched an ancient monolith humming with raw psychic energy. They'd thought it a game, but the echo had latched onto them dormant, waiting. Now, with their minds more disciplined, more open, it had found a way in. "We thought we were getting stronger," Lyriel said, tears streaking her cheeks. "But we were just opening the door wider." Tauren didn't flinch. He sat between them on the mossy bench in the sun dome, where their journey had truly begun. "Then we close it," he said firmly. "Together." But closing it wouldn't be simple. The Obsidian Veil, led by the exiled Prince Vexus, a bitter cousin of the sovereign, planned to use the twins' connection to the echo to awaken it fully, turning it into a weapon that would purge Vareli's of weakness and place Vexus on the throne. And they knew Tauren was the key to breaking their control. The human who had changed the twins, who had given them a will stronger than instinct. The attack came on the night of the blood eclipse, when Vareli's twin moons aligned in crimson shadow. Cloaked in null-field cloaks that dampened psychic energy, Veil assassins infiltrated the spire. They bypassed the guards, disabled the harmonics, and cornered Tauren in the loom chamber. just as the twins had feared. "You've made them soft," Vexus hissed, stepping from the shadows, his own purple skin marked with jagged black tattoos of the veil. "You've stolen their birthright, their beautiful untamed fire." "I gave them choice," Tauren shot back, standing protectively before the loom. "Something you've clearly never had." Vexus sneered. "Choice is an illusion. Blood calls to blood. And tonight, the echo reclaims its daughters." With a flick of his wrist, he activated a resonance spike, a stolen Varelian artifact designed to amplify psychic bonds. The chamber shuddered, the loom screamed, and from deep below, the echo surged upward. Lyriel and Nithra, who had been racing to Tauren's aid, screamed as the echo flooded their minds. Their eyes glowed white, their bodies lifted off the ground, suspended in a vortex of dark energy. "Tauren," Nithra gasped, fighting the pull. "Don't let it take us." He didn't hesitate. Ignoring the assassins, ignoring Vexus's mocking laughter, Tauren did the one thing no Varelian would dare. He severed the loom's primary power feed, rerouted its energy into a feedback loop, and merged it with his own neural sync band, a crude, human-made device he used for diagnostics. It wasn't designed for this. It would burn him out, but it was the only way. "Remember the tuning forks?" he shouted over the howling storm. "Remember how you listened?" The twins' eyes flickered. Just for a second, recognition breaking through the echo's hold. "Focus on my voice," Tauren yelled, his skin already blistering from the feedback. "Not the echo. Me." And they did, drawing on months of discipline, of trust, of countless nights spent learning restraint and respect. Lyriel and Nithra turned their combined will inward, not to fight the echo, but to harmonize with Tauren's frequency. Their psychic energy fused with his human signal, creating a resonance the echo had never encountered. Not pure chaos, not pure order, but something new bond. The chamber exploded in light. Vexus howled as the null field cloaks overloaded. The assassins collapsed, their minds scrambled by the harmonic backlash. And the echo, confused, overwhelmed by the unfamiliar signature, retreated into the depths, its grip broken. Silence fell. Tauren lay on the floor, unconscious, his sync band melted to his wrist. The twins dropped to their knees beside him, cradling his head. "You idiot!" Nithra sobbed, brushing singed hair from his forehead. "You could have died." Lyriel pressed her palm to his chest, channeling healing harmonics. "He would have died," she whispered, "if we hadn't been strong enough to answer him." When Tauren awoke 3 days later, he found himself in the royal infirmary, surrounded not by medbots, but by the twins, and the entire royal family. The sovereign stood at the foot of his bed, eyes glistening. "You didn't just save my daughters," Vorin said, voice thick. "You saved our world from a war it wasn't ready to fight." But Tauren's gaze went straight to Lyriel and Nithra. They looked different, not just older, but steadier. Their glyphs glowed a soft, steady gold. "We're not afraid anymore," Lyriel said. "Not of the echo, not of ourselves. Because you showed us?" Nithra added, taking his hand, "that being polite doesn't mean being weak. It means choosing who you want to be." In the weeks that followed, the twins took on a new mission. With Tauren's guidance, they began mapping the echo's presence across Varelles, not to destroy it, but to understand it, to turn a threat into a guardian. They developed new harmonic protocols, blending human logic with Varelian intuition, creating a shield that protected minds without suppressing will. And their bond with Tauren deepened beyond teacher and student, beyond guardian and princesses. He became their anchor, their confidant, their brother in spirit. They, in turn, became his family, the wild, brilliant, fiercely loyal sisters he'd always imagined his lost sibling might have been. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the spire in shades of amethyst and rose, the three of them stood on the highest balcony, watching the stars emerge. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Lyriel asked quietly. Tauren smiled. "I used to fix broken things because I couldn't fix what I'd lost. Now, I fix things because I found something worth protecting." Nithra leaned her head on his shoulder. "Good, because we're not letting you go." Far below, the palace hummed, not with chaos, nor with rigid order, but with harmony. And in that moment, beneath alien skies, a human and 2 purple-skinned princesses with white hair stood together, not as ruler and subjects, not as savior and saved, but as 3 souls bound by choice, tempered by trials, and forged in something far stronger than law or blood. The echo still whispered in the deep places. The veil still plodded in the dark. But in the heart of the sapphire spire, a new kind of power had taken root, one built not on dominance, but on trust. And as long as they stood together, no shadow could touch them. The seasons turned on Varelles, each one weaving deeper threads into the tapestry of their shared life. The obsidian veil, though not eradicated, lost its momentum. Its followers scattered by the royal fleet, its leader Vexus imprisoned in a resonance-dampened vault beneath the spire, where even echoes couldn't reach him. The echo, once a lurking presence, became a silent partner in the planet's harmony, its voice now gently guided by the twins' calibrated intentions. What had been a threat was now a guardian spirit woven into Varelles' living systems, whispering warnings of solar storms or seismic shifts. Not commands, but counsel. Tauren never sought power, yet power found him anyway, not in titles but in trust. The sovereign, recognizing that his daughter's true strength bloomed not in isolation but in partnership, made an unprecedented decree. Tauren would serve not only as royal guardian, but as co-regent of harmony, a role crafted just for him, bridging human pragmatism and Varelian mysticism. At first, the High Council grumbled. A human? Sharing rule? But then they saw how Lyriel and Nithra consulted him not out of obedience, but out of mutual respect. How his calm logic balanced their intuitive brilliance. How his humility grounded their fire without dimming it. And the twins? They flourished. Lyriel, once impulsive and sharp-tongued, became the architect of Varelles' new peace accords, designing diplomatic protocols that honored both tradition and innovation. Nithra, ever the dreamer, founded the Institute of Cross-Species Ingenuity, where human engineers, Varelian psychics, and even visiting Xylosian botanists collaborated on wonders like emotion-responsive gardens and memory-weaving fabrics. Together, they turned the palace not just into a seat of power, but a beacon of unity. Yet their greatest project remained unseen by the galaxy. A private one, nurtured in quiet moments between duties. One crystalline morning, as twin sunbeams pierced the observatory dome, Tauren found a small, velvet box on his workbench. Inside lay 2 rings woven from starlight thread and human steel, a fusion of their worlds. Beneath it, a single note in Nithra's looping script. We don't ask permission. We ask you to stay. That evening, beneath the blooming nebula vines that now curled lovingly around the spire's highest terrace, the twins stood before him. Not as princesses, but as partners. Lyriel spoke first, her voice steady but tender. You taught us that love isn't control. It's choice. And every day we choose you. Nithra stepped forward, eyes bright. We don't want a throne divided. We want a life shared. All 3 of us. Forever. Tauren, who had faced plasma storms and psychic tempests without flinching, felt his throat tighten. He took their hands, warm, strong, familiar. I came here to leave something good behind, he said softly. But you've given me something better. A home. The wedding was not a grand galactic spectacle, but an intimate ceremony held in the Sundome, where it had all begun. The sovereign presided, tears glistening on his regal cheeks. Minister Glorvac, now sporting a permanently cheerful expression, played the ceremonial chimes. Even the sentient fountains sang in gentle harmonies. Guests included not just nobles but kitchen bots, salvage pilots, and the very scout who had first warned of the echo, now healed and honored. Years flowed like starlight. From their union, unconventional by any galaxy's measure, yet undeniably whole, came children. First came Kales, a boy with Tauren's quiet eyes and Lyriel's sharp mind, who could disassemble a gravity core before his first birthday. Then twins of their own, Mareth and Solon, girls with purple skin, white curls, and a laugh that echoed their mother's mischief, but tempered with their father's kindness. They grew up climbing the spire's crystal spires, learning to weave harmonics and fix engines, told bedtime stories of a human who tamed no one, but loved everyone. The palace thrived, peace held, trade flourished, and every evening, without fail, Tauren, Lyriel, and Nithra would meet on their favorite balcony, children sometimes clinging to their legs or floating lazily in miniature gravity orbs, to watch the twin suns set. No one ever again called the princesses untamable, not because they'd been broken, but because they'd been seen, not as problems to solve, but as souls to cherish. And in that seeing, they had become not just rulers but healers of their world. The galaxy remembered the tale for generations. How chaos was not conquered, but calmed. How a lone human didn't command obedience, but earned devotion. How 3 hearts, from different stars, chose to beat as one. And in the Sapphire Spire, where laughter rang through crystalline halls and children's footprints dotted the mossy paths. The greatest legacy wasn't peace or power, but love, polite, patient, and perfectly shared. In the quiet rhythm of their days, Torin, Lyriel, and Nithra built a life not of grand declarations, but of small, sacred moments. Mornings began with shared tea brewed from moonblossom leaves, Nithra humming old Varelian lullabies, while Lyriel debated stellar physics with Kaylees over breakfast. Torin, ever the tinkerer, taught Solon and Mareth how to rewire a plasma coil using only a hairpin and a whisper of harmonic intent. Lessons met with equal parts awe and giggles. Their home within the spire overflowed with life. Toy gravity orbs rolling down corridors, hand-drawn star charts taped to crystal walls, and the ever-present scent of glowmoss cookies baking in the royal kitchens. Nithra's favorite peace offering after she'd accidentally turned the throne into a giant jelly bean. Evenings were for stories, Torin recounting tales of Earth's oceans, Lyriel describing constellations only Varelians could see, Nithra dramatizing their old pranks with theatrical flair that left the children breathless with laughter. Holidays were celebrated with joyous chaos. During the Festival of Twin Moons, the whole family danced on floating platforms, their silhouettes glowing against violet skies. On human solstice, they gathered around a holographic fireplace, exchanging handmade gifts wrapped in starlight silk. The twins never forgot to say please when asking Torin to fix their hover skates, and he never failed to reply, of course, with a wink. As the children grew, so did their legacy. Kaylees designed eco-shields that healed damaged planets. Mareth and Solon founded a school where alien and human children learned side by side, taught that kindness was the highest form of strength. The palace, once a symbol of rigid majesty, became a living garden of cultures, ideas, and shared dreams. Torin's hair turned silver, Lyriel's glyphs softened to amber, and Nithra's laughter, once wild, now carried the warmth of deep contentment. They still held hands during council meetings, still stole quiet kisses in the observatory, still whispered thank you before bed. Years melted into decades, but their bond only deepened, rooted not in fate, but in choice, renewed every sunrise. And when they sat together on their favorite balcony at last, surrounded by grandchildren who called Torin Grandbuilder and the twins Star Mamas, they knew they had built something rarer than empires. A family forged in love, polished by patience, and bound by the simple, enduring magic of being truly seen. No throne, no title, no galactic fame could compare to this. The sound of shared laughter echoing through the sapphire spire, 3 hearts beating as one, forever home.